My name's Ben Leipern. I'm CEO and co-founder of Filament Health. Filament Health is a clinical stage natural psychedelic drug development company. What does that mean? Well, it means that we identify psychedelic species from the natural world, like magic mushrooms and other species, like in the ayahuasca vines, and we develop technology for extracting those compounds from the natural sources, purifying them, standardizing them, getting them into a pharmaceutical grade, and then we do two things. One is we actually develop those as botanical drugs, and because of our IP platform, we actually license drugs to third parties so that they can actually do psychedelic drug development, leveraging our IP and our expertise in manufacturing. Skip through here. The overarching theme of the problem that we're trying to address is the mental health crisis. Most people would agree that the mental health crisis is probably the biggest, if not certainly one of the biggest challenges facing society today. By the age of 40, 1/5 of all North Americans will go through some kind of mental health crisis, and 1 out of every 2 North Americans suffers a mental health crisis either themselves or via a close family member. Current treatment options either don't exist in the case of certain indications or are very, very poorly tolerated and ineffective in the case of depression. New treatment modalities, new therapeutic tools are sorely needed, and we believe very strongly on the early clinical evidence that psychedelics, especially natural psychedelics, can provide the next generation of solutions. It's also important to keep in mind that when we talk about ourselves as a naturally focused company, people often assume, well, you must be making dietary supplements or you must be making beverages or something like that. It can't possibly be pharmaceuticals. But that's not true. It's important to keep in mind that actually over 40% of all pharmaceutical products that get approved have some kind of natural or botanical origin. The point is that the natural world always was and will always be a very, very important source for new pharmaceutical therapies. In fact, the largest selling cancer drug of all time was a natural extract, a compound called paclitaxel, which was extracted from the inner bark of the yew tree. We think that this idea that the natural world is the best source and the best place to go looking for new therapies applies equally to the psychedelics market, if not more so. It's important to remember that all of these psychedelic molecules, psilocybin, LSD, DMT, these are all natural molecules. They were all discovered in nature for the first time. And over the last several decades, it's become commonplace to manufacture them synthetically. But when you make a product like psilocybin through a process of chemical synthesis, you only make psilocybin. But when you make a natural extract of the magic mushroom, you extract not just psilocybin, you're extracting psilocin, baeocystin, norbaeocystin, a dozen or more other compounds. And it's very possible that these compounds, either in isolation or in combination, can actually provide therapeutic benefits over just the single isolated compound. And that's exactly what we're doing, what we're trying to demonstrate. Our drug candidates, our first 3 drug candidates, are all extracts of the magic mushroom. PEX-010 is a 25 milligram standardized dose of psilocybin. PEX-020 and PEX-030 are actually standardized doses of a compound called psilocin, which I'll talk about more in the following slide. And when I say that we have a standardized oral capsule of 25 milligrams of psilocybin, that means that the capsule contains 25 milligrams of psilocybin, but it also contains all of the other secondary metabolites from the magic mushroom consumed in the same ratio as if you were to consume a magic mushroom. So it's important to think about that because it really differentiates our product from the prevailing standard for psychedelic clinical research, which is all being done with synthetic psilocybin, which does not contain all of these other secondary metabolites and has no opportunity to prove their potential benefits. Just a quick science lesson about a compound called psilocin. It's the active form of psilocybin. Contrary to popular belief, psilocybin is not actually active in the human body. it needs to convert into a related compound called psilocin, which is the serotonin analog and is what's responsible for the therapeutic effects of psilocybin. But because psilocin is actually unstable, especially when manufactured synthetically, people have been forced to manufacture synthetic psilocybin instead because psilocybin is much more stable, and psilocybin is what's actually been given in all clinical research to date. There has been no clinical research that has employed a naturally sourced psychedelic substance, and there has been no clinical trial which has directly administered psilocin rather than psilocybin. But we can imagine that there are several benefits to administering the active form directly. Because we don't have to wait for the conversion from psilocybin into psilocin to take place, we could have a faster onset time and therefore shorter overall duration. We can expect fewer gastrointestinal side effects because the conversion from psilocybin into psilocin is actually thought to occur primarily in the gut. But most importantly, we're looking for a more consistent dose response and to reduce the number of non-responders to oral psilocybin. Why? Because different people have different amounts of the enzymes required to convert psilocybin into psilocin, people get a varying dose response from oral psilocybin. Our hypothesis is that by administering psilocin directly, we can have a much more consistent dose and actually reduce the number of non-responders to psilocybin. Not only have we developed a process for stabilizing and standardizing psilocin synthetically or naturally for the very first time, we've actually also been successful in receiving FDA authorization to administer the psilocin drug products as well as the psilocybin drug product in a FDA authorized human clinical trial. So our phase 1 trial, which is being run at UCSF in California, is actually designed to assess whether there are any benefits, like I said, from administering psilocin compared to administering psilocybin. In addition, we've made a sublingual formulation of the psilocin, which we expect to further enhance the benefits because we will be delivering it in a form which allows for the direct absorption through the oral mucosa. We're also in the process, in parallel, of setting up a phase 2 trial with our psilocybin product. This will be in a patient population with MDD. In addition to our own internal clinical development, what's very exciting about our business model and something really that has taken us a bit by surprise much earlier than expected is there's been a significant amount of interest in other groups licensing our technology and our drug products for use in their own clinical development program. It's not known the number of different indications that psychedelics or psilocybin can potentially address, and it's really impossible for any one group to think that they could accomplish all of the different indications and do a clinical development program. That's why we think it makes a ton of sense for us to license our drugs to other companies that have expertise in a various therapeutic area. For example, one deal that we actually announced this week, and it's not on this slide, is a licensing deal with a group called Science, PSYENCE. They are a group that is expert in palliative care, in anxiety and depression in the palliative care population, and we've actually issued them an exclusive license to use our technology and our drugs in the UK. What this means in practice is that Filament is able to generate actual revenue rather than incurring the very large cost of drug development for each indication area. We actually earn revenue along the drug development stages through milestone payments, and then we earn a royalty on future sales of any approved drug. We think this is a great way of spreading the risk and cost of developing our drugs amongst many partners in the ecosystem while still maintaining a very significant benefit on the eventual upside of the approval. This licensing program is really predicated on the fact that we have very strong IP. One of the challenges in psychedelic drug development is the perceived lack of opportunities to get good intellectual property protection for drug development candidates. And that's another question that we get with natural. Well, with natural, doesn't that mean that you can't get any IP? It is true that it's not possible to patent any naturally occurring molecules. But whether you manufacture them naturally or synthetic, it's still not possible to patent them. But what it is possible to patent are technologies that are developed for the extraction, purification, standardization, as well as the finished formulations, the compositions of matter required for various human delivery forms. And that's exactly what we've done. We've actually already got 3 issued patents for extraction technology, and we're expecting several more issued patents before the end of the year. This sets us up in a very unique position in that we are one of a very few number of psychedelic companies with an actual approved, FDA-approved human clinical trial with drug candidates that actually have very good patent protection. When you compare natural IP to synthetic IP, as I said, our IP rests on the number of different methods of manufacture that are required to arrive at a pharmaceutical grade product, which is derived from a natural source. But on the natural side, there's actually a limited number of such processes. We've identified through our work in the lab that there's really only 3 ways to make a magic mushroom extract, and we've gone out and been able to file for patents on all 3 of them, and 2 of those patents are issued. But when you manufacture something synthetically, there's essentially an unlimited number of ways to manufacture. So a patent on any one of those methods is really of little value because it will be easy to work around. Similarly, some synthetic companies claim to have patented specific polymorphic forms of synthetic psilocybin. But since many polymorphic forms or different combinations of different polymorphic forms are possible, a patent on any one of those or any of those combinations is not particularly valuable. So we actually think that the natural side provides even better opportunities for IP protection. Again, contrary to popular belief, contrary to what you might have heard. The third thing that we like to talk about in terms of our natural advantage is the opportunity for more widespread adoption. It's clear that there will probably be a pharmaceutical market for psilocybin and other psychedelic candidates. The FDA has shown that they are, relatively amenable to clinical development, particularly for psilocybin. They even gave psilocybin breakthrough therapy designation in 2 instances. So we will see some kind of pharmaceutical psilocybin eventually. But what's really interesting is that in addition, in parallel, we are seeing other legal markets appear. In Canada, we have something called the Special Access Program, where Canadians can actually apply to have access to psilocybin in advance of any pharmaceutical legalization. And in America, you're seeing states like Oregon legalize, not decriminalize, but actually legalize psilocybin for any reason that any participant might choose. What's interesting about the Oregon market is that they've actually prohibited, well, the draft rules contemplate prohibiting synthetic psilocybin. And the only way to manufacture psilocybin for the upcoming Oregon market is either by growing raw mushrooms or producing natural extracts. So we think that by manufacturing psilocybin naturally, we can have a very good advantage in terms of pharmaceutical development, through our own development as well as through the development of our licensing partners, but that in any other markets that arrive, recreational otherwise, that natural products will obviously be vastly preferred. I mean, you don't see people going and buying synthetic cannabinoids from dispensaries, right? You see them buying natural products. We think the exact same thing is going to hold true for psychedelics. Where do we do all of this amazing stuff? Well, we do it in our facility in Vancouver, British Columbia. It's 3,500 square feet. We grow magic mushrooms. We develop the extraction technology. We file for patents. We do all of these things. Many psychedelics companies do not have facilities. They're kind of shell companies, struggling to get licenses, struggling to be able to ship products legally. These are all challenges that we figured out long ago, and it stems from our background in manufacturing these kinds of natural extracts. Our current manufacturing capacity at our facility in-house is about 2,000 high doses of psilocybin per month, And that's more than enough to satisfy the demand for any number of clinical trials that arrive in the near and medium term. We're working with CDMO organizations to actually manufacture our product on a large scale when and if any of these drugs do get approved in the future. I mentioned our background, our expertise in manufacturing botanical drugs and different kinds of extracts. The people on the top row of that slide are all colleagues of mine from a former business. It was a local startup in Vancouver which specialized in the development of a novel phytochemical extraction technology which used subcritical water to replace ethanol and methanol extraction. Before that, I actually worked at other botanical extraction companies. The previous company where we all worked together, we actually sold that company in 2018 for $26 million to a big food ingredients company in the US. That experience of building a company dedicated to botanical extraction, building a team, patenting the technology, commercializing the extracts, and eventually selling the company, I think has given us a very valuable experience that, again, few others in the psychedelics industry possess. To that core team, we've added a wealth of other expertise, including the smiling, shining face of our CFO, Warren Duncan, who is sitting in the audience today. That's boring. We're traded in Canada on the NEO Exchange under the symbol FH, and we're also publicly traded in the United States under the symbol FLHLF. That's all I have for you, but I'm happy to take questions because I think we have probably 8 more minutes, so thank you for your time. So the question was, how do you protect the extraction process and how do you know if someone is infringing? Great question. We have a lot of experience manufacturing these kinds of botanical extracts, and not cannabis, but like probably dozens of other different products for other different industries. And we know through our experimentation how many ways there are in order to extract psilocybin from magic mushrooms. So we've identified pretty much only the 3 ways. It's the 3 different solvents that work to actually extract psilocybin from magic mushrooms. And we've filed for patents on all 3 of those ways. So if someone is out there and announces that they've produced a standardized psilocybin extract from a magic mushroom, it's overwhelmingly likely that they are violating our IP. But it's not just the extraction technology that we've developed. While it's nice that we've managed to get all these patents on extraction technology, what's key is actually layering on top our innovative purification technology in order to produce a high enough grade of product that you can then standardize and get into the clinic. So in addition, in the future when these products are approved, they will have to show, for instance in the EU, in the herbal drug guidance, you actually have to show like what solvent you're using to extract, and we'll be able to get information on how they're manufacturing and know whether or not they're violating our patents.
How do you standardize the dose and make sure that you have a consistent dose that you can that's FDA to have, reliable results from studies?
So the question was, how do you standardize the dose to the grade that the FDA? Sorry, I was told to repeat the question for the audio. So how do you standardize the dose to the degree that the FDA requires? It's a good question, and especially when you're dealing with a natural product, especially one that's not isolated. We don't make 99.9% psilocybin. If we did, we couldn't expect to have any benefits relative to synthetic psilocybin. It would really just be like a cost of goods play. The way that we standardize so precisely is first we extract, then we purify. So we actually purify the level of psilocybin up to between 60 and 80% pure. And then we standardize it back down using excipients and carriers so that it's precisely 10%. The reason for doing so is that our final capsule that we provide contains 250 milligrams of powder, and if exactly 10% of that powder is psilocybin, we know that we're giving exactly 25 milligrams. So that's roughly how we provide the standardization. Where it becomes a bit more complicated for a botanical drug is you don't just have to standardize the psilocybin, you also have to standardize all of the secondary metabolites in the product. But again, it follows the exact same procedure. As we purify the psilocybin, we're also purifying the secondary metabolites in the same ratio, so that when we standardize it back down, all the secondary compounds are present in the final product in the same ratio as if you were to consume a magic mushroom.
So those 25 milligrams of you are potent than the others, 25 milligrams based on mushrooms that you've extracted from?
Yes. Yeah. So it might have, in total, the secondary metabolites may add a few more milligrams of potency. Yeah. Yeah.
And then, sorry, I have a question. How do you differentiate your product from others that might be doing the same thing in the marketplace so that it's not, commoditized?
So far, there are several other naturally focused psychedelics companies. None of them have been able to produce a standardized extract and make it into a clinical trial with or without violating RP. They just haven't been able to do it. So far, we are the only group to have developed a standardized, stable, natural extraction of psilocybin, and we're working on other psychedelics as well. But so far, we're the only group to have gotten a naturally extracted psilocybin into an FDA authorized clinical trial. So for now, we're the only game in town. And what we're actually seeing in the case of the licensing deal we announced this week with the Science Group, they're also a naturally focused company. They actually grow their own mushrooms. They've been trying and failing over the last couple of years to develop their own extracted product. And once they found out about us, they actually decided that they would just rather use our technology than continue to try and fail and develop their own.
Sorry, I guess, can you go back to slide 3? Yeah, no.
This one?
No, the one where you license to, yeah, Cybin, no, the next slide.
This one?
So, if you're licensing to companies like Cybin, are you licensing still, I guess I'm still a little confused even after our discussion, are you licensing that mixture that contains psilocybin, or are you isolating that?
We're not isolating anything. We don't believe in isolation. What we license in these...
Mixture you just described, like in a capsule, you just described.
Yeah, so in fact what we license in these licensing deals is the finished drug product. So that is the encapsulated botanical drug substance, as well as the associated IP used in the manufacture thereof.
But Cybin is also making their own version of this now?
Yeah, so this is a different company to Cybin that you're thinking of. This is a private company called Cybin Therapeutics. Yeah.
The big Cybin that's also working on psychedelic space.
Correct. There are multiple companies with the name Cybin in the name. It's very confusing. I agree. Yeah, big.
That's confusing because you said that that's a name PX010, so I thought that's now you're isolating. Okay, that's confusing.
No, we don't isolate anything. No.
So my ultimate question would be, how do you make money? To get there, how do you price? Is it an upfront fee? Is it a milestone? Is it royalty? How do you
Correct.
price that? So I
Huh.
can try to come up with my own money.
Yeah.
20 different companies are going to get this much upfront, this much milestone, this much.
So the milestone payments for the deal here with Entheotech Biosciences, we've actually disclosed the revenue, and the revenue is similar for the other companies. In the Entheotech deal, we actually make $250,000 per phase 2. The milestone payments, this is $250,000 per phase 2 that the customer initiates. So they might do 2 or 3 different phase 2s. If they initiate a phase 3, the milestone payments go up from there. If they apply for a marketing authorization in any jurisdiction, the milestone payments go up from there. If they get a marketing approval, then another higher milestone payment arrives, as well as in the first commercial sale. The royalties that we negotiate are between 5 and 10% of their eventual pharmaceutical net sales. So you kind of think of yourself, if you can get 20, 30 of these different licensing deals in 20 or 30 different indications, you know, each one of them is doing, call it, one trial every year or every 2 years. Yes, it's a nice little business. And that's it. I'm getting the... Thank you very much.